Hello friends and welcome back. In the previous video we sailed from Las Palmas in the Canaries to the island of Sol in Cabo Verde. Rented scooters to crisscross the island, explored Salinas de Pedra de Lume, had a look at Shark Beach and enjoyed the resort town of Santa Maria. In this episode we sail 33 nautical miles from Madeira Beach to an anchorage between Ilhieu de Sal Rey and the west coast of Boa Vista Island. After only 4 hours we are already at Ponta do Sol, the northwest headland of the island. We passed the French luxury schooner Le Ponant that was anchored a bit further out since its draft doesn't permit going closer to shore. It carries up to 32 guests. The anchorage cannot be entered from the north since there is a shallow underwater ridge connecting Ilhieu de Sal Rey with the main island. Boa Vista is a popular destination for kitesurfers. The following morning we take the dinghy into the port of Sal Rey and report our presence to police. They keep the original ship's papers until our departure. Boa Vista is less developed than Sal, but has strong Morabeza, or Cape Verdean hospitality, and a slow pace of life. Locals are indeed very welcoming. Boa Vista is one of the birthplaces of Morna music. At the Center for Art and Culture, they teach them young, so they carry it forever. We meander the colorful streets of the town. The Catholic Church of Santa Isabel, one of the landmarks in the old colonial center of Sal Rey. Around 450 BC, the Carthaginians already sighted offshore islands opposite the Senegal River. But according to Western historical records, the Portuguese discovered Cabo Verde in 1462. The islands immediately became a crucial point between Europe, Africa and the New World, and the settlers obtained a trading monopoly mainly of salt, orchil, a very valuable purple dye, and slaves coming from the western African coast. African tribes were deeply involved in the slave trade and they raided each other's villages to sell captives as slaves to the Europeans. The Europeans paid with cowrie shells, widely used as money in Africa for centuries, or with manias, horseshoe-shaped copper or brass bracelets, or with textiles, weapons, iron bars and brass figurines. The slaves were densely packed into the ships, usually 2 layers high, and with no sanitary facilities, you were fortunate to be on top. 25 to 30% did not survive the Atlantic crossing. The economy of Boa Vista depended on salt collection and date farming, and equally relied on slavery for labor, but with a difference. In the Americas, slavery was large-scale, plantation-driven, and systematized. In Cabo Verde, it was smaller scale, with a more domestic character and less violence. Slavery has existed for thousands of years, and it is the West, under British leadership, that closed this black chapter in human history. We only wish for a more inclusive discussion.
The number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that, put together. But nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them.
The last slave market in the historic Hamza Souk in Bouremi, Oman, was abolished when Sultan Qaboos came to power in 1970. The tremendous wealth of Cabo Verde attracted pirates, and the islands were regularly attacked, not only for the loot, but also to weaken the islands as a supply base for the Portuguese fleet to support the fight for independence of Uruguay. In 1815, it became so bad that the Portuguese war frigate Amazonas was stationed in Cabo Verde to protect the archipelago, and in 1818, Manuel Antonio Martins, nicknamed the Napoleon of Cabo Verde, a wealthy resident and trader of Boa Vista, decided on his own initiative and at his own expense to build a fort on Ilhieu de Sal Rey to guarantee the safety of the anchorage and the village. After slavery was abolished in Boa Vista in 1876, the fort was used as a platform to combat the illegal slave trade. Restaurant Saudade is housed in a renovated sobrado, a medieval Portuguese house in Sal Rey. On the ground floor, it had warehouses and stores, now the seating area for the diners. On the first floor were the kitchen, living room, dining room and bedrooms, now an exhibition area for memories of the past. The windows offer a nice view of the village square, the courthouse and the archaeological museum. The collective compartments for the slaves and the servants were located in the small building to the right of the main building. The food was out of this world. In the second half of the 19th century, coal-fired steamships started to replace sailing ships. And after the development of the port at Mindelo, Cabo Verde became a major recoaling hub on the transatlantic routes. A smart entrepreneur used those coals for something else. A little south of Sal Rey, along the beach, stands a tall chimney, the last major remnant of Olaria de Chaves, an old pottery and brick factory founded sometime in the late 1800s that produced ceramics, bricks and tiles for the African market. It closed in 1928, at a time when steam engines were being replaced by diesel engines and coal was no longer imported. Most of the complex is now swallowed by shifting sand dunes. The location of the factory was determined by the Rabil River, from where the clay was taken. In 1960, the government established Escola de Olaria do Rabil to teach younger generations Boa Vista's traditional pottery techniques. For decades, it produced household pottery, roof tiles and terracotta items like water jars, pots and bowls, widely used on the island. This is a clay press, basically a clay press, manually operated. You can lift this up, all right? And what they make with it is roof tiles. They used to make, this machine is broken, but here they make roof tiles. These are molds. This is gypsum, okay? And these pieces, they belong together. So you can close it, right? You can close them up, and then you have a hole. And what they do, you pour in. This used to be, this is very thin sludge, very thin. It should be a little bit more thinner, yeah. And then you pour it in here. You pour it in, and then you leave it to rest for a certain time. What happens is the gypsum sucks out the water from the sludge. So on the inside here, so on the inside you form a very thin layer of clay. So you wait for a while, and then you pour out the excess clay. You pour it out, and then again it needs to dry more and more, and then you can open the mold, and then you can take out the vase. This is a vase, yeah, and then you can fire it, and then you have a vase. That's how it works. Yeah. See, it is very, very thin. It's like a mustard. Oddly enough, they do not use a pottery wheel to make round shapes, but they use the much older coiling technique. They have two gas-fired ovens. Now you can see the gas supply, and the bigger pieces are going in one oven. The smaller ones, you can stack them. Yeah. So this is how they fire the pots. Good. The original wood-fired oven outside is no longer used as such. It is now the decor for a monkey photo shoot. The souvenir shop is right next door. We continue northeast via what is called Route 66 towards the mountain. This cobblestone road cuts through the interior of the island, giving a feeling of remoteness and isolation, hence the name. The work mules from the past now roam the desert landscape. On the other side of the mountain, the wind blows freely across the barren, moon-like landscape. The trees can show you the direction of the prevailing winds. The northeast of the island gets slightly more water than the rest, just enough that they have cultivated figs here in the past. The area is more isolated than the resort zones or the capital, and the village of Fundo das Figueiras is the most authentic and least touristy place, with colorful houses, sandy streets and a slow pace of life. We stop here for a quick lunch before driving on to Morro Negro Lighthouse. A winding dirt road going east takes us to a parking spot at the bottom of a 150 meters high black hill, or Morro Negro, on which the lighthouse is standing. The lighthouse was built in 1930 by the Portuguese. It is only 12 meters high, but because of its elevated location, the light has a range of 30 nautical miles. So, we are on the Faro, on the lighthouse in Boa Vista, Cabo Verde. It is located within a protected turtle nature reserve, and the beach below is a nesting site for loggerhead turtles. A skull is included in the treasure trove of the lighthouse keeper. Having a lighthouse built on the easternmost shore of Cabo Verde was no luxury, since Boa Vista was the place where most shipwrecks occurred, nicknamed the ship's cemetery. The difficult navigation was due to the nature of the archipelago, the inaccurate maps, the strong current and winds, and to the presence of many shoals. Beside that, a magnetic anomaly on the northeast coast, dominated by the ferrous nature of the Morro Negro hill, diverted the compasses, disorienting the vessels. In times of famine, the islanders would load the oil lamps and mirrors of the lighthouse on donkeys and lit the light on a different location, thus deliberately wrecking ships they could loot to survive. We continue driving to Praia da Atalanta on the northern wind-battered coast of the island. The dirt road is quite rough. On the beach we will find one of Boa Vista's best-known attractions, the wreck of the Spanish freighter, motor sailor Cabo Santa Maria. A shipwreck here since 1968. But this is the North Atlantic coast. There are more shipwrecks here. The vessel was en route to Brazil when strong currents and winds during a tropical storm pushed the vessel onto the shallow sandy coast in September 1968. The crew escaped unhurt. A good part of the population of Boa Vista were mobilized to recover the cargo of the ship. They used donkeys to carry the cargo to the nearby capital Sal Rey. The unloading operation took nearly a year. The most important cargo were 4 church bells for the new cathedral Metropolitana Nossa Senhora Aparecida in Brazil. Interestingly, the bells were named after the ships of Christopher Columbus. Note the interesting design of the bell tower. According to reports, and I quote, "The church bells disappeared in deep water," unquote. We leave it to the viewer whether they want to believe that bronze bells stowed in the hold of a ship on a shallow, sandy beach can disappear in deep water. After almost 60 years of battering by the wind and constant waves, only a rusty midsection remains for the time being. But not for long. We drove along the beach back to Sal Rey before closing this wonderful trip with a healthy dinner at restaurant Good Greens. The following day we spent on preparing the boat and to plan the 140 nautical mile sail to Mindelo. But that is for the next video. Thank you for watching.